Hello, my name is Gopal Rao, and I'm the editor of MRS Bulletin, the Materials Research Society, MRS. And today I'm very pleased to be talking with Dr. Matt Copel, current president of MRS. Matt is a research scientist with IBM at the Thomas J. Watson Research Center in Yorktown Heights, New York. So Matt, these are unusual times. How are you doing in this unprecedented situation? The COVID-19 pandemic. I hope you and your family are safe and well.
We are doing well. We're safe and well. I will throw in that we live about less than an hour from New York City, so we're close. We're not far from the epicenter in Queens. So there's a little bit of stress associated with that, and this crisis is very real to us. But both my wife and I, our jobs are continuing, so we're really fortunate in that respect. We have someplace to shelter. So from that perspective, we're doing quite well. How about yourself?
Yeah, we're doing very well. My family is well and safe. I will say my son is in New York, in Brooklyn, but he's so far doing safe and well. And all MRS staff are working from home full time, and we seem to be managing surprisingly well. So, thank you, Matt. So moving on to the MRS Spring Meeting, is it true that the 2020 MRS Spring Meeting that was scheduled to be held in Phoenix in April has now been rescheduled? Do you know what the new conference dates are?
Yes. So we've shifted things, and this is going to be a really different event because we're going to co-locate the spring meeting with the fall meeting. So right after Thanksgiving, both the spring meeting and the fall meeting are going to take place in Boston, and we're going to start it a day earlier because there's just a lot more stuff going on to pack into that period. So we're going to start it on Saturday, on November 28th, and it's going to go through Friday, December 4th. A lot of stuff will be going on then.
Very good. And how about all the other MRS Spring Meeting related events surrounding the symposia sessions? We typically have a number of other events going on.
Yeah.
They be rescheduled as well?
Yeah. So they're being rescheduled. Now, some of them will take place at the fall meeting. But we don't really have room for all of them to take place. So some of them may take place scattered throughout the year and be broadcast in the format of a webinar or some other special event. Now, that's actually a very attractive option because I think that the webinar attendance has been really strong. So on the one hand, if you're live at the conference, you get the excitement of being up on the podium with people around you. On the other hand, if you do the webinar, you get people's undivided attention while you're presenting. And, maybe they'll associate your research results with having delicious lunch after a hard morning's work. So it can be an attractive option too.
Yeah, well, MRS webinars have certainly seen a large uptick in attendance and numbers, so that's excellent. So I'm putting myself in the position of someone who was scheduled to present a paper or a poster at the 2020 MRS Spring Meeting. So what happens to my abstract now? Can I submit to the MRS Fall Meeting in 2020 or to another meeting?
Okay, so one of the things that we're trying very hard to do is to make sure we take care of all the people who are contributing to the meeting, right? So we're going to reschedule as many of the talks as possible, and we're in the process of planning with the meeting chairs and the symposium organizers to automatically include as many of them in the program as possible. So you should expect to be contacted probably within the next month or two about how your presentation will be rescheduled.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if I already withdrew my abstract, can I still take advantage of some of the options
Oh, yeah.
That are being developed for the presentation of my research. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we understand, we acknowledge that a lot of people, travel impositions came along. There was a lot of legitimate concern about people's safeties, and they withdrew their abstracts. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the original program before people withdrew any abstracts and work from that. So if you've withdrawn your abstract, we will still contact you and try to figure out a way for you to present those research results.
This joint meeting sounds very interesting, but obviously there's still a lot of uncertainty with regard to the COVID-19 pandemic. What if COVID-19 remains an issue into late November? Will this new joint meeting be canceled or postponed?
That is a legitimate concern. There's no denying that. So, and nobody really knows what the situation will be like come late fall. So what we're doing is we're preparing some kind of a mixture between a real on-site meeting and a virtual meeting. And that way, when we get closer to the meeting, we can decide what mix we want, how much will take place as a virtual meeting, and how much will take place in person in Boston. And I want to throw in there that this is not something that you just snap your fingers and it comes about, the virtual side of things. So what's going on is the MRS staff, we have a conference services where we provide services for numerous smaller conferences during the year. And some of those are coming up in June, and they have switched to a virtual conference. So, for instance, there's a device research conference, there's an electronic materials conference. Those are switched to virtual. So the MRS staff is building up experience now, figuring out what works and what does not work in terms of doing a virtual conference. If need be, and we have to have a significant virtual component, we'll understand how to scale that up to a larger meeting. So I'm really optimistic that the staff is doing the background work, so they'll be able to deal with whatever eventuality happens.
So as researchers, obviously everyone is having to adjust to the new situation and do things differently. Can I ask you what you and your research group are doing differently to continue research during these times?
Well, yeah, as an experimentalist, it's tough. All right. I mean, our lab early on, before the stay-at-home orders came through, we had already been told to maximize how much work we were doing from home. All right. So we did that early on. We have some minimal essential lab activities. We've been able to keep some parts going through our fab. Just a few things. The people who show up and do the work, they are getting lots of personal protective equipment. They're doing social distancing, things like that. I've been into our lab a couple of times, and what I've observed is people being extremely cautious, which they should be. And I know that New York State is starting to think about loosening up some restrictions, but I'm pretty sure that where we are close to New York City, we will be the last areas to start to loosen up the restrictions, and for good reason. That's rightfully so. I will mention that I have been told that because we're not traveling, that we should consider looking around and seeing if there are some additional virtual conferences that we'd like to attend, because we have a certain travel budget and people aren't using it. So maybe we can use them to attend some virtual events. So that's a shift.
And certainly MRS is looking into organizing such events as well, beyond what you mentioned with regard to the other meetings. On a broader sort of scale, do you think the current environment fundamentally will change the way in which materials research will be done in the future?
Yeah. So, okay. On the sort of medium term, we're already changing the way we do things just because of travel restrictions. We're changing the way we collaborate with other groups. Those are going to have big implications, like for user facilities, right? I'm sure there's going to be a big push to make those remotely accessible, for instance. We've already been talking about meetings. That one is evident. An outgrowth of what's going to happen with meetings, I think people really, scientists love to disseminate their work, all right? They're proud of it, and they should. So people are going to look for other ways to disseminate their work. And I think you're going to start to see people being a little bit more creative about how to do it. So it'll be sort of fun to see what other venues or mechanisms people use to spread the word about the good work they're doing. But then on a longer term, much deeper scale, I think you're going to see a shift in funding priorities. And you know, our society and our government will respond to what's going on now. And one of the ways will be what topics we direct our research towards.
The materials research, just like so many other things in this world, will be fundamentally changed.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So I'd like to end by asking you somewhat of a more philosophical question, if I could. The current pandemic has altered our world and life in so many ways, with real long-term repercussions. What are your thoughts on how we are coping and how we will get through all of this?
I have spent a lot of time thinking about this, all right? Because we're all facing these challenges. Some of them are personal, some of them are professional lives, and a lot of us are just overwhelmed by our responsibilities. I recognize that. And a lot of us also are facing really deep disappointments in things that they wanted to do or planned to do and just aren't going to happen. So what I'm impressed is, despite all these obstacles, we're seeing a lot of effort and a lot of care going into trying to reorganize our commitments as professionals, our commitments to science. All right, people are not just throwing in the towel. Right, they're going ahead, and they're doing things like, okay, well, this example of reorganizing our professional meetings and thinking about that's a great example. Looking at how to connect to our peers. So the word that comes to mind for me is resilience. All right. So I'm seeing a lot of individuals, volunteers, staff members. They're just rising to the occasion and showing this tremendous resilience. And I believe that's how we're going to move forward. Okay. We're going to see individuals doing this, showing resilience, and that's gonna feed our institutions and our community and make them all stronger. And then eventually that's going to nurture those of us who feel overwhelmed.
That's an excellent perspective on resilience, and something we should all consider and think about. Thank you so much, Matt, for talking with us today.
It's always a pleasure talking to you, Copel. Give me a call whenever you want.
All right. Thank you, Matt.
Okay.
Thank you.